Yay, hey everyone, welcome to this
No.
pack meetup. Yes, another one. It's exactly the number 5 of the pack meetup, and we're still here, even if the lockdown is still there as well. And I'm so glad that we have so many people connected today. I think it's going to be we decided to make a challenge, say, hey, let's change the platform and use a GoToMeeting and figure out if GoToMeeting is robust enough to support um, experts talking
That's it.
about performance during 1 hour with the various webcams and various stuff. So I'm pretty glad to have that. So thanks everyone to be here. Thanks again to follow us. It means that it brings value for the community. Today, during this pack meetup previous week, we selected a topic uh, from the audience, and in fact, I'm pretty excited to have it. So thanks for bringing that topic up. So how can AI and machine learning help performance engineering? I think this topic has been often been discussed in the previous pack. So I'm pretty glad to talk about that. I know we have several pack members here. They're going to come slowly, one by one, I'm pretty sure. So again, the rule didn't change. So we have 1 hour. We'll try to stay to the 1 hour, but again, we talk a lot. We chat a lot, and the conclusion takes almost 20 minutes. So I think I may start the conclusion in a few minutes to make sure that we are in time. Otherwise, we're gonna not respect the agenda. But anyway, let's try to figure out 1 hour, but probably will be a bit more than 1 hour. And to do that, I have so many pack members with me, and I have people didn't enable the webcam, but you will see them one by one slowly. So we have several
No,
pack members today with
we are
us.
trying to enable your webcam.
Sorry?
But you're not able to do so. It says the webcam limit has reached.
I don't see you, yeah. So let me give you...
I believe that the session has a webcam limit, how many people can be with it.
That's it.
Yeah, so then we
did a load test. That's right. We did a load test on GoToWebinar. So conclusion:
the first bottleneck was found.
It's better to share our data to Chinese government with Zoom. At least we can support more webcams. So I'm pretty glad that we covered that limitation. So okay. So unfortunately, we're not able to share more webcams. That's a big limitations, by the way. I think so. But yeah, let's resume. I'd like to introduce the few speakers that can, of course, share their webcam, but I know that there's many others people connected here, and I'm going to still introduce them as well. So first of all, let me introduce one of the it's a new, okay, I'll name him the newbie, but he's not a newbie, he's an expert as well. It's Giovanni. He's been involved in the PAC Santorini, and he's working for Akamas, by the way. So if we talk about AI, I think he knows way much on AI than I do, because for me, AI is just an algorithm. But anyway, so, well, Giovanni, it's glad to have you on board. How are you?
Nice to be here. I'm fine. Yes, I've been involved in Santorini, even though unfortunately I could not be there. But I'm very excited for this topic.
Cool. We have our good friend from Linz. He's been involved in so many pack now, physical pack at least, and he has also introduced a lot of colleagues working within his company, Dynatrace. Should I present him? I don't know. You probably know him everywhere. So it's Andy Grabner. He has posters on the subway in Paris, in Austria, in New York, in LA. You know his face. You can recognize him everywhere. So Andy, it's an honor to have you back here today.
Well, thank you so much, but I'm not sure what you are drinking in quarantine that you come up with these stories. I have never seen my poster anywhere. But very glad to be here again, and also because it seems we have a limit of 6 video cameras. I'm very glad, happy we can, if it's just those that are on video, and we're done with saying something, we can also turn ours off, so to give somebody else a chance to show their faces.
Sure, makes sense. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
We have also a good friend of ours who's been working so many years closely together. It's Jan Molino. He's been involved also in the pack several times. He's been working in a lot of retailer companies in the UK. So, hey, Jan, how are you today? Oh, your audio is not
I'm
working.
very good, thanks, Henrik.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure. Oh dear, hold on.
It's good. We can hear you. And we have, I think, the person that is waking up the most earlier from all of us, probably drinking coffee and probably has took some breakfast to join us and take a quick shower. So he's pretending that he's been working since many hours now. It's Scott Stevens. Scott,
good morning.
it's great to have you on board again. How are you?
Thank you.
Otherwise, we have another friend and also a big member of the pack. I like to name him the fanatic of raw data without naming him anymore. And the Tableau lovers, he's wearing Tableau t-shirts and underwears with Tableau. You can do everything, my baby. So without naming anymore, I would say it's Stain. So Stain, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me today. Looking forward to the discussions.
It's great to have you on board. Otherwise, those who's not able to share the webcam, I will just mention them. If they're able to, of course, enable their audio, that would be awesome. There is Alexander Podelko, who was pretty active last week. So thanks, Alexander, to come back. How are you, Alexander?
I'm fine, thank you.
And otherwise, we have Alan Gordon, which is currently muted, and he took note last week on our previous topic, and he made a blog. So I really appreciated all the investment that Alan took last week. Thanks, Alan, to come back here again. It's really an honor to have you on board. How are you, Alan?
Thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. Great to be back, but I'm devastated not that I can't get the camera because I especially wore like a really loud shirt this week, so you would see me and notice me more, when I put my hand up.
I guess
I just gave away my camera spot, so you should now be able to share it.
Haha, no.
We have our special guest who he pushed the content, by the way. He is the one who just whisper the idea in our ears, and we'll listen to him. And glad to have him on board. It's Siva. So how Shiva? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you. So pretty much all done with the lockdown, so raring to go to office again.
Yeah, but I think from what I understand is people who can work from home they can still work from home. So
You have to continue working from home.
Yeah. So I don't know when I'm gonna stop working from home, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna probably still do some weird videos and weird stuff again. So I'm sorry for the community if I do bad things, but never mind. Otherwise, we have also an honor to have one of our pack member who were at the virtual pack. It's Gayatri, and she is back, and it's just great to have her. Gayatri, it's honor to have you. It's a pleasure. How are you today?
Doing well, Henrik. Thank you, and glad to be back.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm going to continue on the list. We have one of our good friend of Stain. It's Joey Hendricks. He was part of the pack meetup related to how to bring a new engineer in the performance world. So Joey Hendricks is back. Hi, Joey. How are you?
Yeah, I'm back. Hi, Henry. How are you doing?
I'm pretty well, like every Wednesday evening, by the way. Otherwise, we have a good friend of ours as well, coming directly from the UK, and he's been involved in a COVID-19 project that he mentioned last week. It's Jonathan Wright. So, Jonathan, how are you today?
Yeah, really good, guys. Looking forward to sharing some examples of machine learning that we've been doing in the MIT project, which we've just started using for load and performance. So that'll be quite interesting.
Awesome. Otherwise, I have my good friend live from Mexico. He is the one that teach me all the secret sauce that you should put when you do a Mexican food without naming him. Of course, you probably know that it's Senor Performo. So, Alejandro, how are you today?
Very well, amigos. Very good. Happy to be here. Sad that we couldn't fully share cams. I was wearing pants especially for this occasion, but I'm very happy to be here as usual, and happy to share more fajitas and other dishes recipes.
Cool, awesome.
We perform both at the kitchen very well.
We definitely have to do a kitchen TV live from Mexico. That is on our to-do lists in the next coming month, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
We have
I think you have
also
space as well to share your cam.
Sorry? No, we have a good friend
space
of
to
ours
share his.
from Milan, working from Moviri. He is the, so Andrea Gallo is not here, so I'm not going to blame him, but I'm going to still say that he is the one that do ragu like no one else. It's Luca Forni. So Andrea, sorry, I'm stealing that name and that role to Luca. So Luca, welcome back, and it's great to have you on board, Luca. How are you?
Ciao, fine, thank you. What about you? Have you tried to do another ragu like ours or not?
Yeah, I did. I did a few months after our trip, and it was pretty good. I took the time to cook it slowly and with time. It was really tasty. So now
You're
I
a good
know.
student.
Now I know the secrets. Otherwise, if we continue, we have also one of the biggest mentor, if you refer to load testing, if you started load testing 15 years ago, and if you're still looking for great load testing assets, today there is one blog. I mean, there's two blogs. In fact, there was Alexander Podelko's blog, which is awesome. But I know that Wilson Moore has just an amazing blog, and I always love to read his content. So, Wilson Moore, it's an honor to have you on board. How are you today, Wilson?
Oh, the honor's all mine. We've got like a Marvel's champions here, so from all over the world. So, look forward to hearing what everybody has to say.
All right, so I think we have introduced every pack members that are currently connected. I'm just going to check it out really quickly if I have left and put if someone has been connected as a guest. But by reading that content, how can we take advantage of AI and machine learning? The first reaction I had is thinking, going back to the past, to the Broadwick Castle in Scotland, where we had the chance to have the Michael Jackson of performance and load testing APM products that did an awesome presentation. So this Michael Jackson did a moonwalk dance in the stage, and he explained us that AI is the myth between AI in Dynatrace. And that was basically Mr. Andreas Grabner. So I'd like to have Andy just remind him if he could give us some insights on the talk that he made a few years back, because I think it's a good introduction to start. And of course, we're going to follow the discussion after the notes that Andy just made.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I want to say that it's amazing what you come up with in terms of analogies and colorful language. I guess I need to drink more wine in order to get to that level. But yeah, I think back then I did a session on demystifying the AI that we're using at Dynatrace. I think I really liked the way you explained it earlier, where you said AI is basically just, you call it algorithms, but I think it only works well if you have good data. And so what I was explaining back then is that what we are doing, and I think we are trying obviously to solve all the same problem, and we're using AI in too many ways, and I think also misleading ways as an industry. But I think in the end, what it is, if you have great data, and great data means, Stain will probably tell me or agree with me, great raw data, like high fidelity data, but I think also data with context. So context for us at Dynatrace means we do not only have individual time series data, but we know how this data is connected thanks to our automated detection of the deployment dependencies. So we know exactly which process runs on which host, which service is running in which process talks to which other process thanks to distributed tracing, and we also have the end user data on the top. And based on all that connected data, and based on thanks a lot of compute power and algorithms we put in with feeding it with experience that we have from the last 15, 20 years since we've been doing performance engineering, I think we came up with a solution that can not only tell you there's something wrong, but can then tell you what is the root cause by basically following and traversing our dependency tree and looking at all the different metrics and data we have. So as I always say, Stain, I love what you're doing with your graphs, and you have all your knowledge in here, but I think what we need to figure out is how can we get this knowledge into algorithms and then make it as easy as possible for people to use so that they can all become performance experts. We do our part with it from a vendor perspective, but I'm sure there's many others that also have great algorithms and a lot of great data, and then it's just about making the results easy accessible and meaningful. Yeah.
So Stain, you wanted to add something? You just raised the hand.
Yeah. I always raise my hands when people say raw data, so that's the second time I can do that. But artificial intelligence is, like you said, it's Andreas. It's all about data, and a lot of data. And where I get a little bit, it's also, if you see lots of software vendors will use AI and machine learning. And I also put a blog post today on LinkedIn that we need to be very careful, because lots of softwares don't actually use artificial intelligence and machine learning, but they advertise that they use it because that sells. So that's one thing. And for me, when you really go into artificial intelligence, and APM is a good example, because that's what you use when you monitor your systems. It takes. I'm a little bit afraid that if this goes further, that it will always make our lives easier, and by making it easier, it takes away the thinking sometimes. And what I posted earlier is like a very easy example. There is the autocorrelation with load test tools. I've never used autocorrelation. I've always done it myself, and that's a little bit of the machine learning of artificial, something that's done by you by software. But it needs to be, it's unbelievable complex to design something that will work for different applications in different contexts. So even with Dynatrace, I'm sure that it works really, really well for most of the applications, but sometimes you can have something so unique and that's also interesting for Dynatrace to learn from, that it just doesn't work. So it's a lot of data, it's context that's important, and it's continuous improving what we are doing to make it better, but also don't lose the knowledge that AI replaces, because you do need it when it doesn't work.
So Scott, you want to add something? I'd like also to, after Scott's note, I'd like to ask Shiva, because Shiva posted the topic, so probably wants to have his feedback. So Scott, first, I will let you put your note here.
It's only a quick one. I think it goes to what Stain's saying as well, that I think AI and machine learning, if it's true AI, I might add, as opposed to we've just done a 6 Sigma test over these results and we've found some spikes kind of thing. I mean, that's statistics, it's not necessarily machine learning. I think no matter what tool you use, it's there as a support mechanism. And at the end of the day, you're always going to need a human to sit there and look at the results and think to themselves, yeah, this feels a little bit funny and I don't quite know what it is. So I'm going to have to dig into this and have a better look. So I think it's always having a human in the command chain, even if you have AI sitting there and running. So that's basically it.
So Stan, you want to add something before I give the hand to Shiva?
Yeah, very shortly, because we have done, like you know, Henrik, we've done some wonderful work. You just take that away from human beings. Because if you have a lot of data and you actually look at the raw data, you can do some pattern recognitions and you can do some very clever stuff to even take the analytics away. And that's then you actually achieve something. And I think that Andreas just mentioned it, that you can actually deliver a service to a bigger team, because then actually the whole idea is that I can push a button and that everything happens automatically. And Scott, if you asked me if that was possible a few years ago, I would have said totally not impossible. You always need a human to interpret the results. But with the framework we have designed, which is a little bit on machine learning, I actually do think that you can do some very cool, funky stuff with machine learning to actually also take the analytics away. But of course, it's what I said as well. There is always a bit of it can always fail. We are using now this thing with one client and it works perfectly well because we understand the context of the application, and that's the same with APM tooling. In a way, you need to provide data to your robot so it can learn from what it sees to actually optimize itself to then actually provide a service. So I think there is a lot of possibilities now that we didn't have a few years ago. But that doesn't take away that we do still need the knowledge if it doesn't work to actually look at it and come with interpretation of the data.
Yes, if I may add on this topic, I think one of the key points in using the right algorithm is about explainability. So you just don't need to provide the correct answer, which, as you said, it's quite hard to provide the correct answer in all the context that we might work into. But a very good algorithm should also allow you to understand how it came to that conclusion and what was the most important factors that led the algorithm to find that solution. That's a way to allow human beings to understand something which is a little bit more complex than they usually do. So they have the knowledge to understand these results, but the algorithm has to provide a way to explain to the user what's going on, why did it make that conclusion. And there is actually a lot of work in this field.
So I'd like to ask Shiva, because Shiva posted the topic. So maybe you already have a few ideas behind that specific topic. And also, depending on what Shiva just mentioned, I already have I'd like to structure the discussion. So I will probably add a few things. So Shiva, what was your idea? Do you have anything that you would like to add to the current discussion? But you were the one that's suggested that topic. So you probably already have ideas.
Yes, so in quite a few aspects, like where in performance testing, like we feel the pain. So I thought, like, okay, now with the emergence of machine learning and then artificial intelligence, it could also add up to that. So the one point coming to the data, so the most reliable data that we have in our hand is the production logs. So overall, on the time, like we are monitoring the production, and then we have the logs, like Dynatrace gives us the production logs and other things. But the one still pain aspect that we are feeling is the NFR requirements. So we don't still straight away get the NFR requirements. Even if we go to most of the customers, like we don't get it. So we have to still struggle a lot for getting the NFR requirements, though we have a lot of production data in the hands. So that is one area where I think machine learning can help us to analyze the historical production logs and then tell us like where exactly like we need to do the performance testing. So that can also define the limits as well, seeing on the historical logs, saying like, okay, this is the trend of performance for these transactions over the period of time, and we keep on improving the performance. So based on that, like we also need to define our SLAs as well. So that will be more realistic, as well as like we will also get the NFRs as well there. So that is one aspect that I see with regarding the data. Another thing, the other aspect is like with the help of AI, we can also go ahead and achieve zero-touch performance testing as well. So where now we have more sophisticated tools, like we have CI/CD pipelines where we can automate the performance test execution, but the scripting as such is still an expert area. So that is where, like, we can go. So we now have the NLPs, natural language processings, where we can give the natural language commands and then we can just turn it into the automations as well. So this also, like,
yep, it's good. Please finish. Finish.
No, so this also we can try to utilize, and then we can eliminate the expertise there in performance scripting, and then we can put our expertise more in the analysis.
So that's exactly. Thanks for adding that point. So when I to look at the angle of, okay, how could we utilize properly AI machine learning without making buzzwords and marketing by just saying load AI or AI load or AI save the word of bad performance or whatever it is. I think when it comes to load testing, there is obviously scripting, and load testing is everything about simulation. So first of all, if we had something that tells you what you should test, what will be the workload policy, and do like you do zero touch performance testing with the design, that will be a way improvement. But before we go there, I think Stein mentioned it. You do correlation, you do things, but they're always patterns. They're always things that we are doing manually when we correlating, and we should have tools. I'm saying tools that is recognizing those patterns and say, hey, this is a timestamp. So I'm going to replace it by a timestamp. Oh, this is a date. I'm going to put a date. Or this is blah, blah, blah. So basically it handles everything, and you reduce the human effort to build test scripts. That's one asset. What I think we could improve. The other topic is obviously the analysis, and I think Stein presented pretty well. But I think Dynatrace has so much data that he is able to recognize patterns, and we should. And I think I'd like to introduce Giovanni from Acamas for that. But if we have all together, we are putting rules and say, if I have this pattern, then I have this. Then if we put that in a rule engine, then we could basically start to recognize performance patterns based on technologies and analyze. So that's I think where we can also be smart. And you mentioned one thing which is highly important is the requirements. Requirements is great to get from production with the helps of monitoring tools or APM tools, whatever it is. But still, if I get a requirement from a production environment, but I'm using a small dev environment, should I do the same requirements or should I adapt that requirement? That is always the tricky part. So, okay, so what's the thoughts about what the three main areas? I think we have to separate the discussion with design, requirements, and last, by design, it's also the workload model and so on. And last is the analysis, of course. So I see that Senor Performo. Jan, you have raised several times your hand, and I'm sorry I didn't give you the hand to discuss. So Jan, what's you already had raised several times your hands. What do you want to share with us? Your audio is there's still a problem with your audio.
I think you're still muted, Ian.
Is that better or not?
Yeah, it is.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think machine learning and AI. I think where it is now. I think it's great at rapidly identifying where a problem is. But I think going back to what Stein was saying, the analysis piece, the digging into the detail of the problem is still a human-driven function. The analysis, the expertise that you need to solve these problems. So I think, as I say, it's a great way of getting very, very quickly to the fault domain, where the problem is. But the actual digging out the problem in a lot of cases still requires this analysis piece. So I think that's the win, or a win, that machine learning and AI brings us at the moment. I mean, from performance testing perspective, performance testing tools, they drive the load. That's not going to change. We may get guidance from, as Shiva's been pointing out, analysis of how a system is actually used, and those areas which are perhaps heavily used and do suffer from less than ideal performance, which might steer the our NFRs around what is the goal of our performance testing, what parts of the system are we looking to improve. So I think there's some wins and some value there. Just very quick, I agree with what Scott was saying. Also, there's a lot of claims to be AI. A lot of this is actually stats or linear maths, if you look at it. Not to say that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's probably overstating that I suppose the level of maturity or where a particular solution or source it actually is. Are they truly AI as yet? So just some thoughts there.
Leandro, you want to add something? Because I saw that you have already prepared your OBS setup and everything. I see Senor Performo. So
Yeah, I
what do
was
you
able finally to connect it. Nothing under the waist being shown. But yeah, I wanted to add a little bit. I think the topic of AI, as many have already mentioned, is a little bit wide. The possibilities and the applications for it are a little like this Ouroboros biting its own tail, where it starts, it could be finishing. Because I see some of those applications that, as an example, when you want to generate test cases for your load test automations, as an example, you could leverage some of these AI analysis on logs, as an example, many of the Dynatrace ones, and you can easily gather, let's say, what are the 5 most frequent user paths that we get. And from some of the logs generated at the steps or the API calls, you can automatically probably populate some set of steps, and from that identify it into an automation. Another one from what Stein mentioned as well, I think there are many possibilities for AI to help, finally really help, other than just creating correlation rules. I am very much of Stein's team, where you should create them manually. But if you have a set of logs with multiple user interactions, all of these recordings, let's say that they are done automatically, you can feed them on an AI engine to start to recognize where are the variations, which is mostly what we are doing often. You can easily have a recording, run the AI on it, and let it tell you, hey, these are all the correlations that I could find from the historics, from the learning database that I have, and I can apply them. These ones will work. These ones are really weird. I don't know. So you can leverage a little bit and improve or make it easier, at least on your correlations. And as well, after you are done, probably even the AI can be instructed to initiate those load tests to generate scenarios as well. Because if you have all the logs and you put them on some machine learning, it can tell you, hey, my average is this. When I'm busy, this many users are doing specifically this. Log analysis for utilization patterns. I think that is as well a big opportunity area for AI, where having all those logs, letting the AI run wild on those and learning a little bit and telling you these many users, these ones never connect. It on itself, it could generate very realistic scenarios, give you almost, these are the APIs that are called the most often. I already correlated, generated some of those things from the recordings that I have in at hand. But all that is, as I said, closing the loop from production or from some of the pre-test environments that you have. And data analysis, results, taking actions. Most of them would require a big set of steps to prepare and have everything ready when you can truly say the AI has taken over and is running on it. But I think it will never ever be 100% AI driven. It's not that intelligent yet. It's not that easy to, as many have said, detect patterns, understand some oddities, like this is where everybody saw a bunny on the page and was clicking it, and the AI probably will get a bit confused with, like, why is everybody hitting on that image? I don't know why it is. Weird patterns, specifically load, disconnections. but eventually it will start to get better as you start feeding it with some of those learning databases that it can start to analyze. But I think many of us will have to start understanding some of those approaches, and rather than lose our jobs, we will have an extra layer of understanding and things that we will have to do and be good at, because AI will become pretty quickly a tool for us rather than replacing us, as everything. I mean, most workforce on after automation is not replaced, it just has to change. And I think those are all the impacts and implications that I see on AI.
Stein, you've been raising your hand several times.
Yeah, I'm one of those thinkers.
There's no
No,
rating.
I think that we need to think a little bit out of the box. And we have now our good friends from Neotys here, and we have our good friends from Dynatrace here. And for me, both we use for load testing, but if we would combine them better, and why would an APM tool not provide more information to Neoload and take all the scripting away? So I think that first of all, our friends from Neotys need to completely change how we do load testing. Forget about doing HTTP requests. I don't care how it's done, but I don't want to do it anymore. So we have an APM solution that feeds into Neoload. Neoload will do the magic. Are you writing down, Henrik? And then you will simulate the load that you actually saw in production, and the APM tools will look at some statistics from the test environment. You will change some settings, and it will automatically apply that into production. And also the APM tools need to be, in my belief, need to take a little bit more ownership to learn about all the data and then tune the AVMs on the fly. I don't need other software. If the heap is too big, or you need to make it smaller, or you need to change the type of garbage collection, APM tools should be, in my ideal world, be so clever that it not only comes up with some ideas, but also is brave enough to change it, measure it, adapt it again, and make it optimal. So I think that a lot of software providers, the software that we use, will in the future will step up and use AI and machine learning way more, so that some stuff that we do now will completely change. That's what I'm hoping.
So just to get back to your topic, so at that moment we are running several prototypes on that field, and I think to be able to achieve workload generations or load policy generations, and more than that, automatic test design, you need a very robust data sets and data source, I would say. So I know that if I told you aggregated data, you will start to have itches everywhere, and they will, yeah, but yeah, that's true. And for us building test scripts and detecting what should be tested, we need a very precise granularity to be able to do so. So we've been looking at different data source, and as of now, the problem is that some of the data source that doesn't expose the right metrics that will allow us to build those load test scripts. So that's why we have to be we are still digging on this problem. We're working on different dimensions, but I hope that before the end of the year, we have something to provide on the market that will help the market. That will be my dream and my goal of this lockdown moment. But I know that Jan, you want to say something. I'd like to also remind you guys, I'm not here to do promotion, I know, but I'm gonna still do it. In the 23rd of June, we have a webinar with Akamas. And for those who doesn't know what is Akamas, Akamas is a system that will auto-tune, yeah, it's Giovanni, is auto-tuning your environment based on objectives. It's an awesome product. It's making it's saving so much time and effort, especially when you do tunings. So thanks for Akamas to bringing that up. And I had a discussion a few months back before the lockdown with It was Stefano Doni. He's not connected, but he's a good friend of Giovanni. And he said, I told him, hey, I have a few ideas about this. What do you think? And he told me, yeah, you know, the problem with AI machine learning is it's math. It's not algorithm. It's math. You have to have a precise model. You have to understand the data. You have to understand what you want to do, achieve with that data, and then behind that model, you will be able to build an algorithm behind the scene. It's not the other way where you say, hey, I want to do that. Okay, there is 100,000 algorithms, so I'm going to try one by one and figure out if it's doing the job. Now, I think, and this is why I'd like to have Giovanni giving his feedback, because they've been in this journey and they know a lot on that specific topic. So, Giovanni, what's your insights about that?
Thank you, Eric. So regarding especially the analysis part, this is the where we use AI the most. We use AI in two different, let's say, part of this journey in the analysis. The first one is the analysis of the result of the load test. So the usual activity that you do manually by looking at the raw data, looking at all the traces, looking at all the metrics, identifying the correlation, identifying maybe even a stability period, a warm-up period, these kind of activities that you usually do manually. If you automate the process of performance testing, if you put it in a CI, if you just automate it and run several tests, you don't have the time to do this correlation, to do this analysis, to find the stability period by hand. So this is one part in where I see approaches like Captain Quality Gate, for example, when you identify some, let's say, SLAs that have to be verified, and you identify, you automate the analysis part. In this part here, I think AI can give us a big boost in productivity, because humans still have to identify which are the main KPIs, which are the main SLOs, what is important to understand. Then AI can automate the process. And then the other part is related to what we usually do with a trial and error activity. We are expert in some areas. We are expert on the JVM tuning. We are expert on the kernel level tuning. We are expert on database tuning, for example. But we cannot be expert in every area. So correlating all these areas and finding the sweet spots of the configuration space of all these areas is very, very hard for a human being. Usually when we do performance tests, we find something which is not quite right. Maybe we see a high GC time, and then we find what kind of parameters we can change. We can increase, reduce the heap, change the garbage collector. But what we can do as a human is just change one configuration, maybe two configurations, and run the test again. And running tests, as we all know, it's quite time expensive and costly activity. So we need quite a huge number of tests in order to understand all the different parameters and how they look. And we usually can think about maybe 3, 4, 5 parameters at the same time. AI in this sense can do much, much more. With ACMAS, we are tuning tens or even hundreds of parameters at the same time. And the AI can give us the relation between the parameter and the matrix. And with the explainability concept that I was mentioning before, that Jan also wrote in the chat, that we also have to explain to our customers why AI can be trustworthy. Explainability is very, very important in this. So with ACMAS, one of the things that we started doing from the very beginning is providing, let's say, the list of the most important parameters, the most important things that you have to change to reach to a certain level of performance. And this is the explainability part is a very key part in providing this kind of information, I think.
And I think just to and then just to give a small note, and I know that Shiva wants to add something. I'm going to add it, and then Alan as well. So, but what I'd like to add is first of all, Andy just posted the link to Captain. So if you want to have a look at Captain, he mentioned Captain, SLI, and SLO. It's on the chat. And this is a message to the Captain team, to Andy indirectly. Why don't we have a system that recognize the indicators and the SLOs that needs to be configured for Captain, because I think The technology that is in Captain is just awesome, and we should use it more heavily. But the main challenge is, and the main question I usually receive when I present that is, okay, so which indicator should I define, or what are the objectives? And you mentioned, Giovanni, this is a tricky part. If you don't know your environment, of course, why are you studying testing? This is the question I would ask. But then still, if we have something that say, hey, by the way, maybe you should add this metric, and maybe you should add that SLO, and your test will be even more robust, and you can trust the results out of that. So Shiva, you want to add something about?
Yes, to add to the point that Giovanni said, so in the aspect of system tuning, yes, we tend to run more the test on the trial and error basis without any logic behind it. Like we run more trial and error tests to find out the sweet spot. But again, I think like now with the predictive modeling coming in the machine learning space, like we can use those trial and error test data to come up with a model where we can try to find a sweet spot and then run the test on it instead of running more trial and error tests. So we can also create a model which we can utilize.
So can I interrupt, Henrik? I always find would it not be way more cool that this has been done directly in production because you have all the load in production system?
Yes, I think
yeah,
that's also a good aspect. But again, Stein, for a new system, that is where like we tend to do more tuning. So I think there we won't not be having the production data. But yes, for a system that is in production, yes, we can use it.
Because I find it very bizarre that we have to run millions of tests to do tuning while we have all the load going into production. So I would like to have Akamas doing this live in production for me.
Yeah, this is something that we are looking in our research space right now. We come up from Politecnico di Milano, which is the biggest engineering university in Italy, and we always have a strong relation to the research part. So from the AI standpoint, let's just look at the AI part first. The context is very, very different. In product, while in dev environment or perf environment, we can afford to break everything and nothing happens, actually. But in production, we have much stronger business requirements. We cannot accept a certain service level degradation, for example. We have safety guarantees that we cannot remove running in perf environment. That means that we have to choose very, very correctly the kind of algorithm that we want to use. For example, if I would apply a genetic algorithm, for example, genetic algorithms are known to require a huge number of population, a huge number of tests to converge to something. And they don't have any guarantee on the kind of experiments that they will do. So they start basically randomly. And this is a kind of approach that is hardly can hardly be applied into this context. They require a huge amount of time.
But what we could consider is that part of the auto tuning will be done in production, but there are some changes that you wouldn't make because you never know what's going to happen. But with all the data that you collect, all the information from the heap in production with normal load and normal, I would think that you have enough data to do some small tweaks to make it better. And I do agree when you change the policy of your garbage collection, even then you can do that. But with things that you know that have bigger impact, of course you would then go into a test environment. But I'm sure that there are minor tweaks that you can do live in production to improve the performance.
Yes, in order to enable that, we see that the very first thing to do is to enable A/B testing and these kind of things. And then to find the correct algorithm, we are looking into the reinforcement learning field, for example, which is very good in doing this kind of small adjustments and these kind of things.
Alan, you have raised your hand several times and you didn't have the chance to talk. So please, Alan.
Thanks. Yeah. So the short to the trick, huh? So I was going to say, well, first off, I'm super interested in this topic because AI was actually my degree subject almost like 30 years ago. So I've got this kind of old-fashioned knowledge that's probably way out of date now and dangerous. But to me, when we talk about AI or machine learning, I have this naive view that it means there are two different aspects. One of which is basically rules based, like hard rules that you can actually almost program in, and the other one being more like neural networks, etc., which is much better at handling, as Giovanni is saying, kind of spaces that are multi-dimensional and super complex, and that humans just can't navigate that kind of complexity. So from what a few things that people were saying earlier on in the discussion, like maybe doing a correlation or building the test scripts, for me, that's the kind of thing that could almost be programmed, today. And I don't really think that you need like a complex AI to do that kind of thing. I should qualify that by saying that I totally believe that human level intelligence of AI is possible and will happen, in not that far away in the future. So if you imagine that, then of course, correlating a script is not going to be beyond it. So the most interesting case for me is for sure the optimization, and a great example of that is the kind of JVM tuning. So it's going straight to Akamas. So you've got so many different parameters and so on that a human, with a test tool could spend the rest of their life tweaking them all. And that's exactly the sort of space that neural networks and so on were designed for, and indeed genetic algorithms and so on. So in other words, Henrik, if you were saying design of tests versus analysis, by far the best space for that kind of tech has to be in the analysis of systems. And I think it's maybe not only tuning very, systems with hundreds of different configuration parameters and so on. I mean, for example, I could imagine useful stuff that you could build into test tool, like, for example, just automatically after a test completes, have a quick review of it and just say, is this test in a normal space? Like if you're, say, testing on each release, is this release effectively the same as the last one? And then you don't have to analyze like 1,000 different transaction times by a human and so on. The AI could do that really, really well. There are loads of things we could suggest. For example, scalability testing occurs to me, that a scalability test being the kind of test where you want to run maybe lots of different tests with different loads, different configuration, and get a picture of how your application is going to scale. So an AI could design what are the tests we need to run. Like, if I run a test with like 100 threads hitting the system, and depending on the outcome of that, you would then decide what's the next test you want to run. So AI could do that, or even a kind of a performance test prediction. Like I could say in the scenario design tab in the test tool, I could design the scenario, and the test tool, the AI could say, this is how I think that based on all the previous tests you run, this is how I predict that test would run. So there is potential use in design for performance tests. But I think that a lot of these things would actually be rules based. That was the point I was originally trying to make. So I'm super keen to hear from guys who are working in the kind of AI space now, as opposed to my kind of grandfather level knowledge. So whoever that is on this call, please jump in.
So there's Joey Hendricks that has tried to raise the hand virtually, and now he's able to officially raise the hand with his webcam. So Joey, you want to say something?
Yeah, very glad that I'm able to raise my hand now. Yeah, I totally agree with what Alan is saying. When you look at a real AI, which will be possible in the future, but God knows how long that would take, it's all still very sci-fi right now. An AI could actually do what a human does. So I think that when we talk about machine learning and AI, when you really have something very targeted, like JVM tuning, or what we do with the rough framework, just to look at pattern changes and see how much regression happened, That's a way more targeted solution, which will be more easier to manage and also to easily find out, is this thing even saying something that's relevant in the context of what we're doing? Is it even making sense? Because the bigger your scope becomes, the more harder it becomes to make sense of everything. When you're gonna go looking at multiple different things like databases, the JVM, and all kinds of things, we're going to try and find bottlenecks that might become so big that it's very hard for somebody to make sense if it's working correctly or not. Also, what Stijn was saying was that when you when that takes over the role of the human, and that people might not be able to understand, is the AI saying something that's correct, or is it saying something that doesn't make sense at all, and we're making wrong assumptions based on what the AI is doing? So that's also something which I feel.
So there's something we've been discussing a lot on analysis, discussing pattern, this kind of things. And I don't know for you guys, but when you run load test, there is one task that I think which is just super expensive. It's data. If you don't have the data, what's the purpose of running load tests with no data? So data sets, when you do load testing with, you need at least a significant number of logins and significant number of customers. If you don't do it, it doesn't make sense. And I had the chance a few weeks back to discuss with someone that is building an AI-driven product that is automatically recognizing the scheme and they're recognizing the volumes between the tables, and then you just have an API call and say, hey, I want to have 1 million of data in that assets, and he does the magic, which I think is the revolution for the next. And I think Jonathan, since the beginning of this meetup, has bring up that topic, and so that's why I'd like to have Jonathan's thoughts about data sets. And I think data sets, when it comes to load testing, if you don't have a representative data sets, maybe you should ask yourself, should I postpone my load test or should I run it with some dummy data?
Absolutely. Is there any chance I could just quickly demo this, then I'll show you what we've done? I just need to share my screen for 30 seconds.
And normally you should be able to do that, no?
Not yet.
Here it is.
Yeah, I got it. So I'm just going to show you what we're doing with MIT. So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yep.
So we're looking at synthesizing data. So we went about it. There's a number of different ways, but for what we're trying to do, we need to have realistic data to do GPX locations. So we needed 5 billion historical transactions to be generated. So we used a combination of NLP and generative models to actually create this data. So I'll just give you a quick show of what it looks like. But this is our product, which you can see is coming up with Cambridge in Massachusetts. I'm just going to take the data that we've synthetically generated. So this is based on my my Google Takeout export of JSON information, and we've synthetically generated millions of transactions of GPS locations, all with unique identifiables. So travel time, speed, if it's a walking, multimodal, all this has been generated by creating synthetic data that based on a delta, which was historical data of which I taken out of my Google location data. So that kind of gives you an idea of how you can use ML to actually generate data sets, which we're using this JSON payload to send when we publish this to health authorities. Do it for load testing, because obviously we need huge files to see how it performs.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the thing is that, and to add to that, at the moment, most of the TDM product that are in the market are pretty I would say old-fashioned, but you still need to define the structure of your scheme. You have to make a copy and then the subsets of copy and blah blah blah. So it's a journey to get there. And I think if we have products that are a bit more smart, that learns automatically from what happens from a real production environment, then we can save lots of time, especially when you have a load test and you have few hours or a few days to achieve your objective. So I think it's pretty great to share that to our community. One thing, I'm looking at the time. I promised to keep it to the hour, and it's only already the hour, so I missed my my bet again. Oh, shush. I'm so disappointed. So I think it's a conclusion time. I'm so frustrated because I wanted to continue in that discussion. So I'm pretty sure that most of you here connected, you're also frustrated. I'm sorry
It's a
about
great
that.
topic. I think it also deserves a second part or something like that.
It is,
Yeah,
it
I
is.
agree.
But I'd like to say that I didn't promote the Amazon gift card because the winner of today is me. I deserve 50 euros. No, I'm not allowed to get 50 euros gift card. So no, because in fact because in 2 days it's going to be the Labor Day, and if we want to promote and be ready for the next meetup, which is next Wednesday, we already have selected a theme that has been suggested indirectly by Alan. So it's going to be about what are the trend of the future for performance. So it's indirectly what we've been discussing on the pack. So I think it could be a nice transitioning. But I think Alejandro, you made the point. I think it could be interesting to structure this discussion in various areas because there's so many things to tell and discuss on that field, on that specific theme. So so maybe we will continue the discussion. So sorry guys, I postponed the 50 Amazon gift cards for this session, but I promise you next time you will be able to win 50 euros. So to start the conclusion, I'd like to ask every good friends and good pack members what will be their final thoughts about today's discussion. So I will start first with Jan. So Jan, what will be your final thoughts about today's discussions?
Well, it's been very interesting. I think you can hear me okay, can't you? Yeah. Okay. I think yeah, machine learning, artificial intelligence, it's growing. It's becoming part of performance analysis, performance. It addresses complexity. I think there's because a number of us have commented, it's very difficult for humans to deal with. So much data, so many possible combinations, so many possible causes of a problem. I think it addresses that. I think it's at the moment it's very good in niche areas, as you were referring to, Henrik, around and Scott about data, Jonathan, sorry, about data, creating test data, realistic test data, being able to do that in an efficient and accurate way, so data quality is good. So I think there's lots of areas, and Ellen was alluding to that as well. I think I'm a little bit in Ellen's area. I'm a little bit of a wee bit of a dinosaur in terms of thinking about how artificial intelligence, machine learning, where it's best applied. But it's here to stay. It's growing. It's going to be a great assistance, but it's not going to replace the seasoned performance consultant. It's going to be another tool. As I said earlier, as Dynatrace does now, it takes you straight to here is the problem, fault domain, but there's still the need for that expertise to perhaps get to the absolute detail of the problem. That's not going to go away. So I think it's a very, very useful aid. It deals with complexity. It's going to be a great help, but I see it as complementary. I don't think I don't think our roles as seasoned performance consultants we're suddenly going to find ourselves redundant. I don't think that's going to happen.
So just to add to what you said is we did a kitchen TV with Andy saying that with smart data and smart tools and smart things, you can enjoy your time or spend your time somewhere else. So I think performance engineers has a lot of things to handle. So I think it's great to have technology that allow us to be able to cover more things. So yeah, I agree with your point. So Giovanni, what's your thoughts?
Yep. So I see that AI can be applied in many contexts in our performance area, from data generation to script generation to the analysis part. So again, high quality data I think is very important, and in some sense we are all looking at the same kind of topics. We are all looking at SLOs, metrics. So I think cooperation in this area is very important. For example, we just released our integration with Dynatrace, and we work with them in order to identify how we can push configurations to them, so that we can share what we do, so that their AI can adopt these things. With the Captain, we talk about SLOs, so maybe building an open specification for these kind of things could help the integration with different within different AIs. We are all building some algorithms that are very good in a particular field, automating parameter selection, automating the analysis part, automating the generation. So none of us is going to build the AI that do everything. So as long as we can integrate them and share common ground, it's important. Another point that we didn't touch that much, but I think it's part also Jan touched about it. Being performance expert is something that you learn on the job, that you learn by running many performance tests. As I'm doing interviews these days, I always find people coming up from the university that took at least one class in machine learning. So they know something about machine learning, but they mostly know nothing about performance engineering. So as we go on, machine learning is getting there also. More people that know about machine learning are starting their jobs, but less people that know about performance is doing that. So I'm very glad that the previous talk was about how to introduce someone to performance engineering, and that someone in this right now is probably knows something more than we do about machine learning already. So I think that the combination of these is very interesting.
So you're saying that we should organize something this summer in the Como Lake between the Captain team, Neotys, eat some nice Italian food and save the world from the SLOs? This is what you're saying?
Can't wear masks.
Alexander, you're connected, so I'd like to have your thoughts about what we discussed so far.
First, I want to mention one topic very popular in functional testing was not mentioned: self-healing scripts. So scripts that could find that something changed and fix themselves, or at least say that they need to be fixed. And again, it was already mentioned several times, many things are not exactly machine learning and AI. It's kind of automation, starting from autocorrelation or even just automatic correlation using some rules. And if we're saying that we want to take some information from logs, where we have artificial intelligence there, maybe if we want just to pick up the most typical load, it won't be AI. Maybe we can have something on the top of it that could do something more advanced. And last thing that I want to mention, actually, when we talk about machine learning, we need a lot of data. And that probably should work for production systems that basically establish itself. But when we work in do load testing, often we have cycle when we do something, find a problem, and system was fixed or improved or changed or tuned. But actually, after we tune system, it's somewhat different system. It provides different data and different performance pattern. And so we need to accumulate a lot of data to use actual machine learning after that. So when we change system all the time, machine learning might be not quite applicable.
Thanks for that. Scott, you're connected. So what's the Australian way of thinking in this area?
Oh, we don't talk about Australians in New Zealand.
Oh, sorry, I made a big mistake. Oh gosh.
I think I think there's a couple of strands to it. So I think I liked what Alan had to say, and I like what Giovanni is doing. To me, that is actual machine learning and AI. I think a couple of things we need to be aware of is humans are not bad at matching patterns. And one of the issues that we have is that humans are too good at finding patterns that are not there. And I think sometimes you need strong statistics, strong maths, and some machine learning to actually try and say this is a bit of a false flag. But in doing so, as Giovanni said, those algorithms and the way that it's done, it has to be made open and it has to be explainable to you. I don't trust anything that says, so here's your result, magic, and there's the answer. It's like the answer might be right, but I need to know how that magic happens, and I need to work through it myself to see if I get the same answer out of the end of it. So who knows what AI is going to do in the next 18 months, 2 years, 5 years, right? So trying to predict how good this is or is not going to be in months' time or something like that is not likely to be possible. But the one thing we've started doing and I've started doing is getting into the data science field in a very, very big way. And we are bringing someone with data science background into our performance engineering practice. So that's going to be very, very exciting for all of us to cross-skill some of those things and start working through those sort of mechanisms. Cool.
Yeah, thanks for that that note from New Zealand, not Australia. I'm sorry. It's my last mistake. I won't do that next time. Sorry.
No, there's two Kiwis here.
Yeah, that's true. So
well,
Andy,
if you call me a
Mr.
German
Michael
now, then you
Jackson.
made a similar mistake.
My dream idea is that you do a moonwalk while you do when you're speaking you're presenting your thoughts. That would be great for us.
Yeah, I don't do the moonwalk, maybe just this year. No, so just keep it short. I think what we can do with AI, whatever you want to call it, once we get confident enough, I believe we can, let's say, automate and scale performance engineering to larger parts of the organization. So if we can solve 80% of problems or 80% of repetitive tasks, if we can automate that, it means it frees up more resources for the real performance engineers to look at the 20% that the AI cannot capture. But essentially, we can scale performance engineering results or services to a larger part of the organization. I think that's what it is. And I completely agree. We're not there where we have 100% confidence. It's also not possible because there's so many different systems that behave differently. But if we can improve these systems to get to the 80% mark, I think we're good. And then also what I liked, the ideas that Stein brought up earlier with generating testing scripts from production. Henrik, as you said, we've been talking about this for a while. Right now, you didn't mention the tool, but we are actually the one that we couldn't provide you all the detailed data so that you can easily generate the scripts. So we're working on that. But yeah, there's so many different tools out there, so many different use cases that we can definitely add to the list. Yeah. That's it.
Great, thanks, Andy. So Luca, are you okay that we are going to visit you in this summer to discuss about how to automate the SLO, the SLO?
I already start searching for the best hotel to host all of us. So I take note about the best hotels. So I will keep you in touch on that. Okay. I think that I totally agree with a lot of things I'll say there, especially the fact maybe Jan mentioned it, that we face a lot of customers that are really scared about apply AI for performance because a lot of them are scared about losing their job. And that's strange, but every time that we are talking about automation and AI, someone is quite nervous about that. So, but I totally agree when what we are saying that maybe AI could help us in the several areas that are mentioned in automation and avoid the performance engineer to do trivial, boring, repetitive jobs, such as change parameters, restart everything, and so on, or continuously analyze a lot of charts and data. So, and what I'm pretty sure is that our job as performance engineer will move more and more to be the architect that govern everything in terms of performance, and let tools with AI inside to do very trivial job. And that should be our goals as performance community, to also share this topic with customer and maybe integrate, as Giovanni suggested, a lot of several tools to create a good chain of tools that makes the work of performance engineer, I say, to the next level, to be really the architect that govern everything from the design of the architecture to analyzing also of a business data, not only technical one.
We should be the guardians of the performance.
Yeah.
The guardians
Exactly.
of the galaxy. So we can rename that some like a new Marvel movie, the Guardians of Performance. Gayatri, it's great to have you. It's awesome. I think it's our first PAC lady back in the PAC meetup, so it's great to have you. Thanks, Gayatri.
Yeah. Well, you know, I kind of was not kind of, you know, following up all of these with so many changes going at our end. But then I'm actually back, and I'm very glad and looking forward for this next series. But I want to just share a couple of thoughts on this topic, as you know, it is interesting, and also I've been working on this. Like, we have an AI club in our company, and that's where we are just at least learning with the different data sets what the AI is and what it can do and what the different algorithms as such. So that kind of interested me. Okay, how about applying this to our performance work? Like, we have tons of data in the performance, right? So the data is the gold there, even for the AI. So it just, you have to work through the data and then train the algorithms to give what you're looking for. So that is where it intrigued me, and kind of started looking into our performance data as such. But just to give a gist, and I kind of agree with what Andy said and what Ian also was saying and what Luca said, it is just the beginning of where the future of performance is. That's where I see it. It really applies more, like it's the right time for us to get the AI and machine into performance engineering area, where, you know, the demand, what I see in our team and across the organization is automate, right? So you just get the repeated task out of the way, get that automated, let the machines take care of it, and do your, like, as a consultant, that's the major job the performance engineer, the team, the other people are looking for. Like, you tell us what to do, right? Tell the machine what to do and let it do. But that is something where I see the future of performance engineer is going to be, and it is going to be a very crucial, like Lucas was saying, an architect, right? You are telling how to lay out even the AI or even the machine. You are telling them what to do. So that's where I see more value coming in from the performance engineer. And as a simple approach to this is what I was saying is just in this whole pipeline of the performance engineering, like the NFR gathering or scripting, or, you know, even the data management, execution, and also these all basic phases of performance. We have first piecemeal it and try to understand where is the AI or the machine language really applicable, like where we can start the first step, right? And then you work through that, and once you figured out, okay, this is how it works, then you apply it to the next steps. It is definitely a huge, I would say, requirement or this huge challenge that the performance world has, as well as the organizations. And, you know, at least at the financial industry, they are seeing a lot of automation and a lot of let the machines take care and let human do what they are best at, right? The consultation, decision making is something that humans can take care of it, right? So this is where I'm seeing the future of it. And also what I'm heading towards with the initial steps. Hope that was helpful or didn't confuse more people here.
No, I think I mean, I think I'm pretty excited the fact that people won't have to spend time in tasks that are not very interesting in the performance world, where we have so much things to deal. So I fully align with you. So with this technology, with the amount of data that we're collecting, we can do awesome things for the organization. So I'm pretty excited to see more that technology coming in our work for sure. Stain, what's your thoughts? Yeah, we don't hear you. You're pretty muted.
Stain's on mute.
Not anymore. Live from the Netherlands, not the Netherlands, but Belgium. Okay. Yeah, artificial intelligence is happening, and I think as a performance tester, we need to embrace it. It's not an enemy; it's something that we need to use. We need to actually understand it and start using it more. I think that we actually need to collaborate. What you said, we need to have that session with Akamas, with Dynatrace, with Neotys that are already doing awesome stuff in that field, but use also our specific knowledge to actually put some features on their backlog so it supports performance engineer in what they want to do with artificial intelligence. And don't see it as something that will replace us, because if you see it like that, you will be replaced. So that's why you need to embrace it and actually change your job and what will come to us.
And bring more value to our job. Shiva.
So on one hand, like we are trying to measure and then optimize the performance of AI and MI as such. On the other hand, we also need to allow AI and ML to improve our performance as well. So the performance of performance testing has to be improved. The timeline should be shortened so that it will be widespread across all the industries. Because now if you see, the performance testing is only catered to a limited amount of customers and industries. So we need to shorten the time with the help of AI and ML. So it will be widespread across the industries, and it will be similar like a virtual assistant to us. So it will not replace us, but it will be something similar kind of a Siri or other things. So it will be a virtual assistant. Which will be helping us.
Agree. I totally agree. If we do a better job, then everyone will do it. Sure. That's agree. Jonathan.
Hey. Yeah, just a couple of things really. The first bit would be around AI in general. So, if you're wanting to contribute, I'm doing some work with the ISO at the moment on the 29119 standard for AI. So, there's some interesting papers being published there, and you can get on the review of your whatever country you are in. And also there's an AI alliance as part of the European Commission that I'm a member of as well, which both of them have some fantastic material if you're wanting to go out and find out more about this. In regards to utilizing AI, I know I've been talking to Wilson Mar about this probably for the last 10 years since we've known each other, around things like PAL, the performance application lifecycle tools, which were around in the 90s. The Dynatrace tool does pretty much give you most of the stuff you need. If you check out Probit, which takes the logs from Dynatrace, AppD, Splunk, and then turns them into usable scripts. That's what we use at the moment. And it's a fantastic tool. I'm working, actually been chatting all day with Todd DiCaprio again, and now he's at Splunk, and he's looking at he's just finished at JP Morgan implementing this all out, and you can do that and change as the model changes in production. You can change your low volumetrics. So there's plenty of stuff out there, and I think partly what you mentioned with bringing it all together and coming together and working on universal standards and ways of exchanging data is really important, that these things aren't getting siloed and they can become more of a community which can leverage this kind of capability. So plenty of exciting stuff happening in the AI space. We just need to focus on working together.
It's great to mention Probit. So it's a good friend of ours, Thomas Rote, who was part of the virtual pack. So hi to Thomas. We have a lot of thoughts, we mentioned a lot of times your product. So I hope that everything goes well from your end. Leandro, Mr. Señor Performo.
Oh, wow, I'm Mr. Señor now. That's double time, Señor. Well, as many have already mentioned, AI, for most of us, I would recommend just be prepared, understand it, learn about it, because it will be a tool. It won't come to replace us. It will come to make easier our lives, and most everyone want to come back to how it was before. Again, anytime that automation for something comes and improves things, no one wants to go back to do things the old ways, and everybody starts to learn this type of thing. So it won't replace us. There are things that I think we are really far from AI replacing us completely. It will be a big tool. It will help us a lot. And in many multiple areas, correlations, analysis, utilizations, data patterns, the possibilities are endless. The thing is that, as Stein was hinting you a lot, some of these things have to be built, pieces have to be put together, and I still feel we are a bit far from it. I mean, in technology, age, far or young or old, it's a very short period. So everyone be prepared, understand AI, understand what are the uses, approaches, and what can it be done with it. And as well, the other side of the coin that I think was not mentioned too much, to test AI. That's the other side where I think another part two would be an interesting plan. What happens when multiple and concurrent people ask something Alejandra instead of the name that I won't say to trigger people home's devices, but there are also multiple applications where we can start thinking on how to stress, to performance test, and to measure AI. So many possibilities. Get busy, people.
Awesome. So, and I think if you test AI, you need data. So then you circle back. You say, oh, I need AI. And then
The Ouroboros that I mentioned earlier, we need to start building everything so that it can spin and eat its tail constantly.
Joey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, first off, my closing thoughts about this is that I believe that making things too complicated when regarding to machine learning and to AI can lead to you not understanding what the thing is doing anymore and might give you wrong conclusions. So definitely think that the knowledge of what the machine learning algorithm or the AI is doing should still be there, but it should be a tool just to allow you to accelerate faster because you don't have to do the repetitive task anymore. But you would still have to know the knowledge to verify if what that AI is doing is correct and not just blindly trusting on it, because that's going to steer you the wrong way. So I think that the knowledge will still have to be there, but the actual, but it will become an accelerating factor for many teams across the globe in the upcoming years.
Makes sense. Makes total sense for sure. And I have a last pack member who did a pretty nice, a very short note, but he was very interesting and relevant. It's Alan. So Alan, do you want to make your final thoughts to close down this meetup?
Yeah. So yeah, I pretty much said my thoughts earlier, but I'm definitely looking forward to the next session. I think honestly we're just scratching the surface now of the whole machine learning thing and what it's going to bring in performance. And I feel like, you know, this is like performance test tools were in the mid-90s or something like that. And we might look back in 10 years and laugh, you know, at the discussion we're having now and saying this tool, these things will never replace us and things like this. But, you know, before I get too excited and go off to watch Blade Runner, maybe I could say what is the next the very next concrete step that we could try and take, and maybe it is to improve the life right now. I think we could try to improve the flow of data between the performance test tool and the APM tool. That would probably be a really useful thing for me. So get all of the data like flowing in both directions. I know the tools, a lot of the tools have integrations already, but I think it could be done better, more in real time, and to use that data for different things. So that would be a kind of concrete suggestion.
Yeah, I know. This is a discussion that we had a few months back with Andy and Andreas Grabner, and yeah, we were really crossing the fingers to see some change, and so we can collect and utilize all this amazing data that they have in their hands. So we can do amazing stuff in load testing, I think, for sure. I agree with that point. All right, so that was the 5th PAC meetup. So I promised to do it in 1 hour. I did it, but it took half an hour to make the conclusion. So next time I will short it down to half an hour and do half an hour
conclusions.
But that's how it goes when you have lots of people connected. So thanks for everyone. Thanks to staying longer than expected. The next PAC meetup will happen. It will be our 6th PAC meetup, and surprisingly, it's happened the 6th of May. So I think it's there's something behind. And I would like to remind you, if you're not following LinkedIn, Mr. HTTP 503, without naming him, it's Scott Moore. He is suggesting to do the performance engineering day on the 5th of May. So sorry, no, 3rd of May. So it's going to be on Sunday. So if you guys want to share anyone that work in performance, any things about your work or pictures on the social media, I would recommend to do that, because it could be a great day to put in our calendar. So every year, the 3rd of May is the Performance Engineering Day, and the 4th of May is the Star Wars Day, and the 6th of May is the PAC meetup. So that will be a nice transitioning for that. Also, I'd like to also promote one thing, is the 23rd of June. Remember, we've been discussing a lot with Giovanni, with Luca, mentioning ACAMAS. So if you want to hear more about us, we have a dedicated webinar about their technology. So I will suggest that anyone who is interested, just come to our webinar. You will learn how ACAMAS work and what was the benefit out of that. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for all the PAC members. You were just awesome. Without you, those meetup doesn't make sense. Otherwise, I will make bad jokes and nobody will laugh. So at least you have someone laughing. So thanks for that. And I will let you have a nice evening and see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.